When I bought this company, it was doing about $300,000 a year with over 800 customers on the books. And a year later, it was over $1 million in revenue. Everyone sees that part and thinks that's the story, but honestly, it's not. The story is that within the first few months of taking over, literally every single person that worked for us was gone. Every technician, every manager, everyone. And honestly, I understand why. Because we bought this company, we changed almost everything. And if you've ever bought a company or thought about buying a company, this is what it looked like for us. Hey guys, I'm Jonas Olson, the founder of Pest Badger. I've been in the service industry for over 17 years. Over the last 5 years, I've got a pest control company from one location to over 20 locations across multiple states. I used this channel to document how I think about building service businesses, and it was actually working for us. I wish my mentors would have documented their journey, so I'm documenting mine for you. Today, I want to walk you through one of our acquisitions we made, what happened after the paperwork was signed. Because buying the pest control company wasn't the hard part, what happened next was. So like I said, the company that we bought was doing right about $300,000, just over, and it had over 800 customers. Had a couple technicians, had a manager that was also a school teacher. She obviously helped out during the summer when, obviously got busy. She stepped in just during that busy season to really help things out. And she came over with the company to help us get a good start. And the first thing I'll say is that these were really good people. They cared about their customers. They worked super hard. It was definitely not a lazy team. It wasn't a bad team even. And honestly, the problem wasn't effort. The problem was that the business had just been operating the same way for years. And nobody's willing to challenge the model. Nobody was asking if there was a better way. And the business simply just reached a ceiling. But once we got inside, it became pretty obvious. The owner had bought that company from the previous owner. He also had another business that he was working on the side that was bigger than this one. So a lot we can talk about in the next video. But a lot of people assume that acquisitions are super terrifying. And don't get me wrong, there's always unknowns. But honestly, we weren't nervous at all. We had already spent a lot of time during due diligence looking at the numbers before we bought it. Obviously, we knew there were a ton of opportunities, knew that there were things that we could improve. And most importantly, we also knew what the downside would look like. But my thinking is super simple on this. Even if we lost half the customers and doubled the price on every single customer that stayed, we would still be in good shape. We'd still be in the same amount of revenue. We'd have fewer stops. We'd have possibly better outs, but way better margins and overall a healthier business. And when you've already thought through the entire downside, it changes how you look at the opportunity. You're not hoping that it works. You're executing the plan that we do every single time. Hold up, quick pause. If you're on a pest control company or fertilization weed control company, you're not in our Facebook group, you're choosing the harder path. Every operator that's in there is skipping years of mistakes because people are actually sharing what's working right now. To stop trying to brute force your way through growth alone, search Pest Control Millionaires on Facebook or click the link below. And now let's get back to it. I'm gonna walk you through the first few weeks. The first thing we did wasn't marketing. It wasn't sales. It wasn't recruiting. I opened the books and started digging in deeper, talking to employees, talking to the managers, talking to the owner. Let's forget how many stops they did per day, how the routes were built, what the CRM looked like, what customers were paying, and obviously how the service was delivered, and how many customers were actually on a reoccurring program. I talked about what their retention looked like. I talked about what their marketing looked like. And the deeper I got into the business, the more obvious it became that we were going to have to make some massive changes here. Now, I'm not going to get into the exact pricing, programs, or numbers in this video. I'm not going to talk a lot about the owner because that's for the next video. But I can tell you this. The changes that we knew we needed to make were going to affect almost everyone and everything. The employees, the customers, the scheduling, the way the services were sold, the way the company operated day by day, literally everything had to change. And once we started making those changes, things started happening super fast. And this is the part where a lot of people don't think about when they're buying a company. They think about the customers, obviously they think about revenue, they're thinking about the trucks, they're thinking about equipment, they're thinking about EBITDA. What they don't think about is what happens when the people who have been doing it for the same way for so many years suddenly asked to do things differently. And when we took over, obviously the technicians came with us, the manager came with us, and the managers stayed for about 2 to 4 weeks, if I don't remember correctly. And then she was gone. And a little while later, everyone else is gone too. And within a few months, the entire original team had been turned over and replaced. Literally every single person. And honestly, I don't blame them. And so why? Let's think about it from their perspective. They had been doing it the same way for years. And then we show up and we just started changing everything. And even when those changes are the right thing for the business, that doesn't make them easy for the people involved. People just get comfortable, they get set in their ways. They always say that, oh, this is the way we've always done it. And people just get attached to what things that they're used to. It's just human nature, honestly. And as the owner, you have to understand that. You need to communicate. You need to explain it. I sat everyone down for lunch. I went over everything. I told them the vision, the changes we were going to make. And you can show people why you're making the changes, but that doesn't mean that everyone is going to buy in. And sometimes they just won't. And that's just part of the game. Another thing that people don't talk about enough on social media is they just don't realize that acquisitions can get super emotional. Again, everyone talks about multiples, everyone talks about EBITDA, everyone talks about revenue, but very, very few people talk about walking into the shop and realizing everything feels different. Their trucks are still there. Their customers, for the most part, at this point, are still there. The building is still there, but the people who are in charge are different. The culture is extremely different. The routines are extremely different. The way we operate is extremely different. And at some point, you realize you're just not managing the transition anymore. You're basically building a brand new company inside of a shell of a company that used to be there. And you're trying to do this turnaround on this company that's been struggling for years. And it's a super strange feeling. And I'll be honest with you guys, as I always am, losing the team wasn't fun. It's never fun. But it also wasn't unexpected. We had already talked through the possibilities before the acquisition even happened. Who we want to keep, who we didn't think was going to stay. We knew that some employees might leave. We knew that some customers might leave. You're changing the entire brand. Of course, there's going to be a ton of resistance because there's always change when we show up, no matter what. But planning really matters at this point. And a lot of acquisitions get into trouble because buyers assume everything will stay the same after closing. And just to be honest, it just doesn't. Especially if you guys have already bought a company, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Something changes every single time. And usually, it's a lot of things or most things. But the more prepared that you guys are, the easier it is to stay focused on it when it happens. Now let's move over to the customer side, right? The same thing happens with customers. When we started making changes, some customers left. Super uncomfortable. You never, ever want to see your customer account going backwards, ever. That's just not what we want to do. Your brain immediately starts asking yourself if you're making a huge mistake. Honestly, it just happens. But we've been planning for it. We knew it was going to happen. So we always go back to the same exact thing. The goal here is not to have the most customers at this point. It's a turnaround business. The goal is to make the best business possible with the customers that we had. And a customer who's properly priced and properly serviced is worth way more than several customers who aren't. Let's be honest. A smaller customer base with healthier margins beats a huge customer base that's barely profitable every single time. We weren't trying to win a customer count contest, honestly. We were just trying to restructure this entire company. And sometimes those are two very different things. I cannot wait to tell you guys the story on the next video. But within the first few weeks, few days, few months, the company already went from $300,000 to over $1 million in revenue. It's the same, obviously same market, chain shops, few new trucks, many of the same customers, and over $1 million in revenue. Business got healthier, the numbers improved, the customer experience improved, everything moved in the right direction. But if you only looked at the revenue number, you're missing the most important part of this story. Buying a struggling company isn't really about finding a really good deal. There are opportunities literally everywhere. The hard part is making the changes. And the hard part is sticking with those changes even when so many people push back and resist. The customers, the employees, they threaten to walk, they're going to leave. That's when it gets really, really hard. You have to stay confident when things get uncomfortable. The hard part is making decisions that not everyone's going to agree with, ever. But that's part of the job. And if you think about buying a company someday, just understand that going in. It's way easier. The opportunities will be really obvious. Following through is where the most people struggle. So one of the biggest reasons that I'm documenting my journey and sharing what's worked for us is because we're actively looking for the right people who build Pest Badger alongside of us. And what you saw in this last video wasn't luck, is a proven playbook that we've applied to the right business. And over the last 5 years, we've used that same playbook to go from one location to over 20 locations across multiple states. And now we're looking for the next entrepreneurs and operators who want to build alongside of us. Maybe you're looking to get into pest control industry. And maybe you already own a pest control company and want to grow faster. Maybe you're thinking about opening another location or buying a competitor or building something that's bigger than what you have today. That's exactly why we built the Pest Badger franchise, to give good people a proven playbook for sales, marketing, operations, recruiting, and growth. So if that sounds interesting to you, click the link below, reach out, we can jump on a call, see if it's a good fit. I'd love to hear your story, learn more about you, about your goals, and to see if Pest Badger will be a good fit. In the next video, I'm showing you guys exactly how I took this company from $300,000 to just over $1 million in revenue with just in a few weeks. I'm gonna show you the exact pricing changes, the exact recurring program, the decisions that I had to make, and the numbers that went behind the turnaround. Obviously, you guys have questions, comments, make sure to put them in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.